Good morning, everyone. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the spread of communism in Asia. So we're going to use two examples under this topic. Firstly, the Chinese Civil War and then the Korean War. So when we talk about these examples, I think one important thing is that after we learn about these events, you need to be able to identify if the actions took by the USSR or US, those actions, they were defensive or offensive. So I think you need to be able to identify whether those actions were actually defensive or offensive. One of the most important features for Cold War is that they were not willing to start a hot war like the First World War and the Second World War. But at the same time, they try to keep a balance of tensions, right? So that means on the other side, they are not ignoring each other while they were defending for themselves, or they were blocking the expansion of the other side. So I think for Cold War, when we learn about different events, one important thing is that you need to be able to distinguish whether their actions were defensive or offensive. For most times, for some DBQs, actually always ask you to make judgments on the actions of USSR or US, whether their actions were defensive or offensive. When we learn all these things, you should be prepared for this kind of questions. And also, more importantly, while you're trying to conclude your view to answer those questions, you need to have these examples, for example, Chinese Civil War or Korean War, as your example to prove your conclusion. Okay, so firstly, Chinese Civil War, some very basic information of Chinese Civil War. Firstly, it took place over a long period of time between 1927 and 1950. So you have to know that it was started from firstly, the collapse of the first united front of the Kuomintang and the CCP or CPC, the Communist Party and Nationalist Party of China, right? And then what happened is the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Manchurian crisis. When we talk about the failure of League of Nations, actually we mentioned the Manchurian crisis, right? And then the Second Sino-Japanese War, and then the Second World War, and then the formation of the Second United Front of the Nationalist Party and the Chinese Communist Party in China, right? And after the war, it has led to a new wave of the Chinese Civil War, which ended in 1949 when the Communist Party, they formed the People's Republic of China in 1949, right? So it was interrupted when Japan invaded China in 1936, the Sino-Japanese War. Actually, they already started to invade China from 1931, the Manchurian crisis, right? When Japan, they joined the Axis powers and be a part of the Axis power during the Second World War. So the Sino-Japanese War also ended when the U.S. they sent the two atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, right? So it was fought between Kuomintang, the KMT, and also CPC or CCP. CPC, that means Communist Party of China. CCP means Chinese Communist Party. We have different short form of these name of these parties. So you have to know the leader for Kuomintang at the time was Chiang Kai-shek or Chiang Jie-shi. For the other side is Mao Zedong. So during the Chinese Civil War, actually after the Pearl Harbor incident, when U.S. decided to join the Allied powers to fight the Axis powers during the Second World War, start from then, the U.S. has already sent their support to China, and as the recognized government at that time for the Nanjing government led by the Nationalist Party of China, Chiang Jie-shi always regarded as the real leader of China. This is also the reason why, even during the Civil War, the U.S. they fully supported the Kuomintang in order to contain the spread of communism in Asia, because the biggest competitor for the Nationalist Party in China were the Communist Party, right? So on the other side, for the Communist Party, they were heavily funded by Soviet Union and quickly gained support in the rural areas because according to Mao Zedong's ideologies, it attracted a lot of support from the peasants and also from the workers, right? So after the Sino-Japanese War, part of the reason why Communist Party became like stronger is not only because they are heavily funded, also because the Soviet-led these Communist Party have the weapons left by the Japanese in some places were already occupied by the Communist Party of China. For example, the Yan'an part, right? But you have to know, right after the Second World War, before the second wave of the Chinese Civil War, actually for the first few years, the United States tried to broker peace between the two sides where the country would be split. They actually helped us to hold the Chongqing negotiation, try to settle the civil war, try to settle the conflicts between the Nationalist Party and Communist Party in 1945 from August to October. However, neither side was willing to give in. So this is also important for you to understand the containment policy, right? So even though they're not encouraging collaboration, but still they're not encouraging like conflicts between the two sides. It's about the containing, it's not about the conflicting, or it's not about expansion, right? So you can see some part of it can be like very defensive and also offensive. So think about one question. How did Chongqing negotiation, which was supported by the US, be a part of the containment policy of the US? So you need to know the result of Chinese Civil War. By 1948, the Communist Party was gaining momentum. They continued to take nationalist cities, and with each victory, they were gaining support within the population of China because the Communist Party was supporting a rural revolution. While in China, more than 80% of the people, they live in rural areas. That is the reason why actually Communist Party, they like really grew stronger through the years. They can have the ultimate success after all this expansion of them in China. So they were gaining support within the population of China since their rural revolution has been very successful to gain the help, to gain the support from the peasants and the workers. So in October of 1949, the Communist Party, they captured Beijing. They said that China was now under the rule of People's Republic of China. So on the other side, the Nationalist Party, they had to flee to Taiwan, where they established their own government called the Republic of China, or ROC. So we have PRC and ROC. And even after the formation of PRC, it still like continued for the confrontation between the Communist bloc and the capitalist bloc in China. For example, after the Chinese Civil War, close SinoSoviet relationship was established after the founding of PRC. They signed the Sino-Soviet Treaty of Friendship, Alliance, and Mutual Assistance, which were going to receive economic and military aid from USSR in February 1950. So it's settled that in China, actually it's a victory for the Communist Party or for the USSR, for the Communist bloc. Like this, right? Our friendships can be last for like thousands of years, right? Like it's like a handshaking between Stalin and Mao Zedong. Not only that our adults should be friends, our children also should be friends, right? Like our workers, we are all communism. Our ultimate goal is a communist state. So we'll fight together to keep the world peace. So on the other side, the US continues to support the Kuomintang government in Taiwan. So you need to know that Chinese Civil War has established that the Cold War has to be escalated and spread to Asia. Before this, it's mostly in Eastern Europe and European countries, the Greece Civil War, and also all the conflicts and agreement to disagreement in all those wartime conferences, right? But during the Chinese Civil War, the Cold War has escalated and spread to Asia. Actually, this kind of relationship even have impacts on nowadays. For example, when Donald Trump was elected as the president of the US, Taiwan, Tsai Ing-wen actually called Donald Trump to congratulate him, right? So you can see the close relationship even in nowadays between Taiwan and the US. This is like originally from the Chinese Civil War. At that time, they established their close relationship, right? So like here, the president of Taiwan called me today to wish me congratulations on winning the presidency. Thank you. Like this is a Twitter from Donald Trump. You have to see why the mainland China at this time can be very sensitive to this, because when he says the president of Taiwan, actually he showed his recognition of Taiwan as an independent country. But still, you have to know in mainland China, this is like a very controversial issue. So when the president of such a large country has recognized Taiwan as an independent country, of course, it will trigger the nerve of mainland China, right? So interesting how the US sells Taiwan billions of dollars of military equipment, but I should not accept a congratulatory call. That means not only that they recognize Taiwan as an independent country, more importantly, actually they were selling them like different military equipment. So of course, it further triggered the nerve of the mainland China, right? So like this is also the reason why later in 2019, Xi Jinping actually sent the letter to Taiwan. So you can see, even though it's already like after so many years of the Chinese Civil War, the things happened at that time actually still have impacts on nowadays events, right? So for next video, we're going to talk about the Korean War. Actually, this is just the same kind of thing as the Chinese Civil War. As that time they were having like different parties who is trying to dominate the country and build the official government in Korea, and also with different parties they were accepting support from those different blocs to lead to like further conflicts. So still, most important thing is you need to be recognized whether their actions, which part of the action can be defensive, which part of the action can be very offensive. See you in next video.